Hello, everyone, and we will start shortly the event. Just a few more minutes or one more minute to see that more attendees are joining. Yeah, welcome everyone to the International Water Colloquium. As you might have seen on the starting sliders, this is a weekly event running in November and December and bringing together lots of researchers from around the world to talk about cooperation, international cooperation in water management. So last week we had researchers from University of Bonn and UNU-FLORES on board. And this week, I'm very happy to see Nora from IHE Delft and Tom from TU Delft here to speak about their project and capacity building through research in Myanmar. Before we start the session, I would like to do some housekeeping first. So for people who are joining us today via Zoom, please use the icons below. You have there a chat function where you can already share with us where you're from. I saw that, thank you. But you can also use it for if you have any technical issues to reach out to us directly. So myself, I'm Christina, and yeah, Rarit, we will moderate throughout the session and try to keep up with the chat and try to reply to your questions. And then we have the Q&A function on the bottom of the screen where you can drop us some content-related questions, which we will then address in the Q&A session in the end of this event. And for people who are joining us today via Facebook, please also reach out to us via the comment function, and we will also address these questions in the end. So yeah, welcome again, Nora and Tom. Thank you for joining and being here today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Christina, Rajit, for inviting me. Also, thank you, Tom, for liaising. So I will start with a presentation. I had a sneak peek to the list of participants, and I saw a few names that I know from Myanmar. So hello to everyone. So I'm going to talk about our research capacity building experiences in Myanmar. Let me just share my screen like this. And so the experience I'm going to talk about is in part showing how we can leapfrog water management through that capacity building through research. So the work I'm presenting is made jointly with my colleague John Connellan, who is a senior research fellow in Charles Sturt University, and with whom I've been running most of the projects in Myanmar I will be talking about. So before I start with the experiences of the project, some kind of general information on what is capacity building through research really is. So the way we understand the building of research capacity is an ongoing process. It's empowering not only individuals, but also the institutions and the organizations within which they operate. And that empowering is for three things: to define and prioritize problems systematically, to develop and scientifically evaluate appropriate solutions, and also to share and apply the knowledge generated for evidence-based decision-making. And the way we have been doing this capacity building through research is focusing at the individual mid-level professional within their broader organization and institutional setting. We also see this approach very much as connected to cooperation. So cross-sector collaboration is really included as a priority within the capacity building. And this relates to the IWM principles. And the reason why is obviously because natural resources management problems and water resources management problems, they're always cross-sectoral. Not almost always, they're always cross-sectoral. And so they also require a cross-sectoral collaboration. And therefore, devising research and projects for cross-sector engagement is the key concept also in this capacity building through research approach. And I will show you how this has been played out in Myanmar through reflecting on two recent capacity building projects that we have done there. One is the niche project on capacity development of IWRM in Myanmar that was running from 2015 to 2018. And then another project from the Waterland and Ecosystems program of the CJAR on capacity building and professional development for inclusive governance and management of water and ecosystem services in the Irrawaddy River Basin. Yeah, quite a long title, but so it was about not only the management of water, but also the governance of water and of water within its ecosystem services context. So I will discuss briefly the aim and the approach of the project, and then focusing on the WLE project, explaining how we brought this capacity building to function through using a project-based and learning on the job approach. And then we have some reflections both from the participant side and also from our side, let's say, as the staff involved in the project. So the niche project, which was running in collaboration with the TU Delft, they were coordinating, and both ourselves at IG and Delft as a partner, but then also a whole number of other partners. Importantly, or most importantly, 3 universities in Myanmar were involved: the Yangon Technological University, Myanmar Maritime University, and then the Mandalay Technological University. And what we were doing there was looking at both building capacity for research on individual researcher level, but also at the way, for example, the MSc and PhD programs were set up, and also developing really new courses or improving course material, bringing in the knowledge of IWRM in the existing curriculum at universities. Then the WLE Irrawaddy program was a bit more, less targeting the universities alone, but actually had a broad focus of looking at representatives of not only universities, but also the different water-related ministries in Myanmar and some civil society organizations. And this, I love this picture. Here we were at the confluence of the Irrawaddy River in Myitkyina with our group. So you see about 30 people from all different departments related to water. So the aim of the capacity building and this project was to contribute to sustainable and integrated development of Myanmar's water resources. And how are we going to do that, or how are we going to do that? By enhancing the capacities for inclusive governance and management of water and ecosystem services. Yeah, and so we wanted to have a professional training program for multidisciplinary groups of mid-level water professionals. So people that have already worked for 5 to 10 years in their organizations, being the city development committees, being the irrigation department, being the meteorological department, agriculture, etc. And so we were coming together as a group from these different disciplines to create a common understanding of the water, of the land and the ecosystems in this Irrawaddy River Basin. This is the longest river, the main river in Myanmar, to enhance personal skills and to also focus on active learning and coach project work. So the way we had set up that training program, capacity building program, you can see in this graph was in the middle, in the core, the green blocks are a number of trainings that were given through the course of 1 year. So we had 2 batches, one in 2015, one in 2016. And these trainings were embedded in activities around policy engagement on the left and networking and communication on the right. And all that with the idea to not only strengthen the capacity of the individual fellow participating in the program, but also of the organizations that would have to implement this inclusive governance and management of water and ecosystem services. And who were our core partners here? We have Mandalay Technology, which is a private company that was facilitating a lot of the interactions and the field visits, for example, the connections to projects, the Ministry of Transport, IUCN, TU Delft, NARBO, which is an international river basin network that was looking into certification of IWRM through this training, and then with funding of Australian Aid and the Waterland and Ecosystems program of CJAR. And of course, also TU Delft was one of our key partners. And then locally, ARBRO, the Irrawaddy River Basin Research Organization, they were a very important partner as they provided a link to experts from these different water-related sectors. So we had connection to seniors that had been working in the administration for a long time or were still active in the administration, and that would give feedback both on the way we had set up the training program, but also individually to the fellows on their projects. So the institutional and capacity building and networking, the way this was looking, the main way in which we managed to implement that was through having a training of trainer program for those participants that were coming from the Myanmar universities and from the government training center. So we were having lecturers from those different universities participating as a fellow. So they were doing all the trainings and the project works, just as all the other fellows. But then in addition, we would have some extra time with them to discuss, okay, how did we set this training up? What was working? If you would want to do that yourself, how would you do it, etc. And then apart from that, there was also the institutional capacity building of ARBRO, as I mentioned before. And we did some work on embedding this professional training in the Myanmar water sector. And the way in which this took place was to have discussions with NARBO, with the broader river basin organization, on IWRM certification. So we were looking into, okay, we have now set up a 1-year training. Can we, at the end of this training, give a certificate that says this fellow is now specialized in IWRM? And can we find kind of agreement within the Myanmar water sector that they agree that these are the skills an IWRM expert should have? So who were our fellows that were participating? So in the 2 years, we see around 20 people that were participating. The TOT that you see in this graph is a trainer of trainer. So these were the people coming from the research environment, lecturers at universities that were going to take these trainings of themselves later, but also representatives of civil society organizations, NGOs, and then different types of government departments. We see gender, we had about 50-50, male, female, a bit more ladies than gentlemen in our group. And so we had a nice kind of diverse group of people working in these capacity building programs. And just to give you a taste of how this looked like, also of the area, maybe you have never looked on the map to see where Myanmar is, or the Irrawaddy Basin, you cannot really imagine. So I have this video on our training program that I want to share with you, but I have to kind of stop sharing my screen and re-sharing the screen. So just 1 second for that. It's a nice intermezzo. So I share my sound also.
Irrawaddy River is the main blood of our Myanmar. In my point of view, Irrawaddy River is very important for not only Myanmar people, but also other related countries.
After many years of isolation, Myanmar is now attempting to develop its resources in a sustainable and integrated manner. There is still little experience with integrated delta management and planning in Myanmar.
Myanmar has a lot of water resources, but still it is not evenly distributed. There are a lot of natural water-related disasters.
When I studied in Irrawaddy River, I saw a lot of problems. Some of the area use the bad water quality, and some of the area use the water extraction along the bank of the Irrawaddy River.
The fish farm is just fish farm. The pond, inside the pond there is water, and the fish are swimming in the ponds. But it's not so simple because they use just the traditional ways of the fish farming. There is no drainage systems to drain out the polluted water systematically and regularly. If they face some problems about the fish disease or something, so they just drain out that polluted water.
At the heart of the Niche 250 project is a fellowship program to enhance the capacities of professionals from key organisations at national and state levels. The focus is on developing the policy engagement skills of organisations, scholars and practitioners at state and local levels.
So in terms of national water policy, it's said that, okay, under the policy, we have a lot of related law and regulation. We just have to integrate them. So it means that we have to integrate the different stakeholders involved by building more, approachable policy integration system.
The team has been working closely with a number of different communities in the Delta region to assess the problems the communities are facing.
One of my objectives is to get the local community perception on the current water quality situation, because as you know, local community live they live along the river for many years, so they know more about the river more than us.
Of course, they're really interested in this issue because throughout their generation, their ancestor and probably their future generation may be suffering from this same issue every year. So they really support this program.
The fellows have made clear progress with their knowledge and skills, and the continued work will ensure that Myanmar is better equipped to sustainably build and restore its Delta region.
To participate in this program is also a big opportunity for me. I could learn what is the challenge and the problem happening in our riverine system.
Because of joining this program, I really hoped to contribute the knowledge and the experience from the water resources management for the whole Delta region that can be duplicated to how to manage the challenges in my host organization.
Although the water quality is not good, they like to use it because they love their river very much. Water quality is very important for not only for local people but also for the other and human. If the river water is disappear, maybe they told me they don't live and they can't live without the river.
Okay, nice video. I was very happy to see this one again. So to continue now, so what did we learn from this approach? Well, before I get there, actually, what was our approach to build the capacity? We were really focusing on, as you also heard the fellows say, on connecting what was already existing. And from a capacity topical perspective, of course, there's a lot of capacity in the different sectors in Myanmar, on energy, on agriculture, forestry, etc. But as we know, whatever water management or natural resources management problem, these sectors are interconnected. And so it's really important to think about understanding each other's language and find a way of cooperate. So we need both understanding or a capacity in the deep knowledge, let's say the disciplinary or the sectoral knowledge, and this overarching knowledge that makes us able to connect to each other and to understand each other. And the approach that we were following was to provide mainly that connection and kind of the skills and understanding for cooperation. How did we do that? We did that by having fellows work on coached projects in different parts of the basin. So not just in a delta, but we also had projects upstream. So actually one of the fellows you were hearing talking to communities on water quality issues, she had her project here in the Myitkyina confluence of the Irrawaddy. And all over the river, we were having projects on different topics related to ecosystems, to health, to livelihoods, etc. Why did we work with a project phase? Because it's really important to practice what it means in reality to have water management and cooperation. So the objective was to better understand the need for integration and the possible gains that you can get through integration and cooperation, but also the challenges. And to reflect on the project based on ideas that we had shared in class in the general trainings, to just put them in perspective. No? Knowledge is about management, about how you do planning, about water quality issues, to put them in perspective when you're really working on a specific project on the ground. And finally, the idea was to give recommendations in the end, so that all the fellows, through doing their project work and through putting new knowledge in perspective, combining it with the existing procedures happening in their organizations, to then give recommendations to their organization and also more in general to the Water Resources Commission in Myanmar. In the second year, we changed a little bit the project proposal, and we really went from we changed the way in which the project phase was done through writing a clear proposal. Yeah? So what did we now learn from these projects and from these capacity building experiences? So we asked different kind of questions to our fellows. We asked them to reflect on a number of things and asked them, so what is the key learning and the building bridges? And one of the things we asked is, what is the most significant knowledge that you gained during the training program? And the answer we received was that people learned on IWM, they learned about governance, about the interconnectedness of problems, about the need to collaborate, and about writing a proposal. We also asked them what the most useful skill was that they were gathering during the training. And there, what was answered was that they learned how to debate, how to present, and how to listen. And you can imagine the importance of these things for cooperation, right? In addition to that, they also mentioned that one of the main skills they had learned was how to write a proposal. Finally, the question on how has your network grown during the training, and how have you used this in your research, proposal development, and further work? The answers we got was that people received a network of friends from different disciplines, organizations, that they had found ways in exchanging data to make proposals, but also skills, and that they had found kind of an international network and training opportunities. And one of the fellows actually took her project work further, so the proposal that she had made within this capacity building program, and turned it into a proposal that actually was going to receive funding from her department. But we were also asking a bit more questions about what was the impact of this professional training. Like, how would this move from the capacity building of the individual to the capacity building of the institutions? No, if you think back about the first slide, where we look at capacity building through research as an embedding of the individual capacity within the organizations. So when we asked the question to our fellows on what is the key message you had for your senior colleague after completing the training, we actually received very little feedback. And we realized that this connection to the superior in the organization was something that was a bit difficult. Also, the kind of change that was achieved in management in AirWadi, or the policy recommendation, was something that seemed to be not readily answerable. And then finally, how were you able to apply the knowledge and connections that you gathered in the job was particularly clear to the people participating from the university, so through the training of trainers, because they now use the skills and the content from the WE in their teaching. And so this is a very clear way in which we had a spillover or multiplier effect through this capacity building program. I have a couple of reflections still on the lessons learned, but I will stop here in view of time, and we will take this maybe later in the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And yeah, now Tom goes ahead.
So I think you can hear me now. Yeah, Nora making a nod, so that means okay. So I think you see my screen. Thank you, Nora, for the introduction. This is the full screen version. So capacity building.
Sorry, Tom, sorry.
Yes.
I see your slides, the other screen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That means this one only, I think, then. Is this better, Christina? I think so.
It's not in full mode yet, but we can see.
It's not in full mode. That's an issue of. No.
If you put it in presentation mode, and on the top of your screen, you see display settings. If you click that, you can remove this view where you see the two slides.
That's okay then. That's interesting. I'm not quite sure why it's not doing it. No, so Christina, I think you are not seeing my screen full screen, eh?
No, not yet, but we can see the slides. Yes.
Okay, now then we do it like this. So
and now you can go on the top, and under display settings, you just put a duplicate on the top. Not an yes, and then duplicate. Yes, yes.
Here you are.
Duplicate slideshow.
Yes, I did.
Oh yes, good. Now we can see. Thank you.
I learned something today. Thank you very much, and sorry for the delay. Capacity building through research. I'm excited to be here. Ming Labar to all my Myanmar friends who I saw already in the attendees list. So hope to see you soon and stay safe there in Myanmar. I want to show and share some of our experience of doing the research. It will mainly be examples that I will show, some of our nice examples. I will have a few short overview. And I will focus on one sub-project we had, and that was having innovations and small medium enterprises in water resources management, and how we interacted with those small medium enterprises for our capacity building projects. So we'll have some examples and then some reflections. So what I always say, Myanmar is, for a water resources manager, really a kind of paradise. It is, although there is a huge amount of problems, still quite pristine. It's incredibly important for the entire country, and a lot of work still has to be done. So in different areas, being it a bit more for hydropower in the mountain areas, water efficiency in the dry zone in the middle, but also the more hydraulic engineering works in deltas, ports, and of course the incredible problems arising for the large cities in Myanmar. So what do we do in Myanmar? We basically did academic research, we did training of professionals, we did capacity building with mainly the 3 universities already mentioned by Nora, and water innovations. And I want to focus on the academic research and water innovations and how we combined it. So overall, I think we did something like more than 50 studies, mainly executed in collaboration with the Myanmar PhD candidates. Those were the candidates first and foremost of the TU Delft Myanmar PhD candidates, and some PhD candidates from YTU and MMU and MT. The focus was on water resources management, but also on hydraulic engineering. Now, I can talk 1 hour also on the hydraulic engineering projects we had, but I will focus today a bit more on the water resources management and mainly some water quality. So the second project we had was from Ministry of Economic Affairs, and they basically allowed companies, small, medium enterprise companies who had some innovation, to showcase their solution in Myanmar. And one of the things we mainly thought of was having modern communication technology like mobile phones, having computer systems, local information, and try to combine those. It should be affordable, it should be real-time if possible, and it should have sufficient accuracy, and of course it should be reliable if we really want to start using it in Myanmar. Now, many projects, and you can find their reports on our website, and we had companies going in hydraulic engineering, doing bathymetry, really local ones using mobile phones to measure water level height, but also companies using satellite products, for example, to see the subsidence in Yangon or to estimate the soil moisture content. We had companies looking at monitoring and at data collection. And I will focus today a bit more on the two on the left, which are the apps and the drones used for mobile, water quality measurements, and how we combine those in capacity building projects. We had mainly 16 themes. We had some on rainfall and linked to that urban flooding. Of course, different types of erosion, river erosion, a lot of water quality, subsidence. As you see, the deformation here, just as an example of the city of Yangon, can currently go up to 2 centimeters per year. So in the new neighborhoods in Yangon, the former capital, one of the largest cities in Myanmar, you see that there is subsidence in the order of centimeter scale, which is of course huge. And coastal processes, which are a very important one. So I will highlight rainfall measurements and how we use those water quality monitoring for the Ayeyarwady. There is no systematic monitoring system in place for monitoring the Ayeyarwady system to really know the water quality issues. We also show you some examples of how we worked in urban lakes, mainly algae blooms. But what we also did, I will not discuss those, but for example, the two pictures on the left is one of our students who linked up with a Myanmar student and hiked 650 kilometers along the Chinwin, completely from Calais up to the confluence, south of the confluence of the Chinwin and the Ayeyarwady, and measuring everyday water quality using simple and portable techniques. I mean, there was quite an adventure of the students, and at the same time, every time they came at the city or at a university or a local water agency, they gave a presentation about their work. So there was a huge amount of outreach here as well. So let me give you an example. There is this relatively cheap rain gauge which uses sound, the impact of a raindrop on a sensor, as a rain gauge. And the potential use for Myanmar and for a lot of developing countries is it has no moving parts, making it a bit more reliable. So we make a prototype together with students. So here you see Nick van der Giese, our professor who initiated this project, and people are really building their own prototype of sensor. Then we have student projects in which we install those and we start comparing them with other rain gauges. And that can be rain gauges of a plastic Coca-Cola bottle. I will show you some of those as well, but also the standard rain gauges. And in this way, people start comparing and analyzing the quality of a, in this case, simple rain gauge. And then all that information, because if you have a lot of cheap rain gauges, you can have a good overview, a spatial distributed overview of your rainfall, and you can use it for an urban flood model. And one of our students, together with an YTU student, made models for the floods in Yangon city. Another example is maybe this problem. Here you see myself being extremely tall compared to the Myanmar colleagues. And here we bought a $8,500 as water quality equipment, several high-end sensors, and we installed it. And it was really a problem getting data out of it. And it started already with the fact that it needed D-cell batteries, but only of a particular type, which could not be bought in Myanmar. So I had to import those, which means a delay of several months. And after having it installed, it's still only 1 point. We got a few months of data, and then, like often, it damaged, and local repair was quite difficult. So we decided to do it in a different way. Tanda Tatu made a low-cost water quality monitoring system for the entire Ayeyarwady, which is a river of 2,500 kilometers. We took approximately 1,200 kilometers, and we started to monitor the water quality weekly at 7 locations with simple technology. Technology supported by mobile phones, which used, for example, indicator strips, simple sensors. We trained local observers, and we used this one. We checked the quality, of course, especially the indicator strip, pH, nitrate, nitrite, in some case iron, were of lower quality than you would need for a long-term monitoring system, but the electric conductivity and suspended sediment did absolutely fabulous. You even see some time series. I just took the one of electric conductivity, You see the water level height and you see the water quality on the other axis, and you really see the patterns. And this is a river which has a base flow at the lower reaches of 8,000 to 10,000 cubic meters per second. So it's a huge river. And this is a really important first step in getting a water quality monitoring system in place in Myanmar. A completely different project that we did was linking our students, TU Delft students, with local government organizations, in this case YCDC, and young students, young staff from universities. And we have developed a monitoring plan of one of the most important recreational lakes and stormwater lakes in Yangon. This we did with some drones. So that means we had some small boats sailing around the lake, and we could see the spatial distribution of water quality. For example, the dissolved oxygen is really low at some points, and of course at the same time chlorophyll alpha, so that is a proxy for algae bloom. You will easily see that the pink values here on the right lower corner, those are dead end areas of the lake where the water quality is dangerously bad. This helps the local governments, but it also helps the students to learn equipment, measurement technique, interpolation techniques, and linking it with hand manual measurements that we did alongside with this sailing of the boat. Other projects that I will not detail on could be bathymetry, could be wave energy and installation of, for example, small jetties for recreational areas, water level measurements, or on the right lower part, we installed the first soil moisture sensor network of Myanmar, which is now connected to the worldwide soil moisture database. So 4 locations will give continuous soil water content to the international community. These are steps, and all these projects help local stakeholders, but also students and staff to better understand their hydrological system. We do this type of projects not only in Myanmar. This combination of students from the Netherlands and from Myanmar, or in this case, this picture is from Vietnam, really has helped us a lot. And those are really simple and at the same time challenging projects. For example, we asked students to do rain bottle signs at the campus, and they had to estimate the spatial distribution of rainfall using homemade rain gauges. The same you could do for evaporation. The same we did for water quality assessment in the West Lake and Tolich River in Hanoi. So those are projects where student groups collaborate and use innovation techniques, and then really think of the measurements they are doing and learn from each other. Some nice examples, by the way, on our website. I am extremely enthusiastic about this type of projects. We have those in Nepal, in Ghana, in Thailand. For example, in Thailand, we also used low-cost real-time GPS to measure the height of the flood protections along one of the rivers in the south of Thailand. Here we showed that with relatively cheap and simple technology, we could really improve the flood defense and make an urban flood model using that type of information. And last but not least, and that's maybe also interesting for a lot of you, this is the type of research which also can be published, where is really a need to better understand how we can use, often called citizen science, but also low-cost sensors in our research. And that can go up from structured expert judgment, which is a method having interviews with local stakeholders and reconstruct historical water levels from those. But it can also be the examples I showed you of citizen science using soda bottles to measure rainfall. What did I learn? What are my reflections? First of all, these type of collaborative projects, in this case between the Netherlands and Myanmar, but can also be between the Netherlands and Ghana or Vietnam, it gives an enormous amount of positive energy. Also for both sides, this is often a lifetime experience. It is doing experiments, having fun, being creative. A very important part is that this type of projects help university staff, and that was important in Myanmar, to move towards more inquiry-based education. So instead of textbook teaching, often relatively lecture-centered, we went into more inquiry, doing research, learn from those projects and learn from each other. And very important, what I learned is by using or introducing an innovation, the users are obliged to reflect on how we normally measure or monitor, for example, water quality. What's the quality of the data? It gives you a scientific attitude on assessing data quality and the use of data, and it stimulates a lot of creativity. And last not least, I think those innovations can help Myanmar leapfrogging their water resources management to the 21st century and not stepping into the mistakes or using the monitoring techniques currently used in the rest of the world. And with that, I thank you, and I think Nora and I are very happy to take any questions, and please visit our website if you want to have more information.
Thank you very much for the insights. It's very interesting to learn more about your work. So to the audience, please, if you have any questions, please place them in the Q&A section and we will address them shortly. But just before we do that, I have also two questions, and you mentioned already a few points on that, but if you could maybe summarize it from your personal experience. First of all, what are your main challenges and lessons learned from this project?
So you ask it to Nora or to me?
I maybe start with Nora and then I go back to you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. I think for us in our experience, and as also it came a bit across when we did our own assessment of the program and asking the participants what they had learned, I think what works very well with our approach was this individual capacity building and the growth indeed on the personal level. And as Tom says, there's a lot of positive energy, there's a lot of progress, but we kind of struggled to really connect or make meaningful change on this short time span also within the organizations. And so somehow we felt that this might just need more attention in the setup of future capacity building programs. That right now, kind of this institutional capacity building, we did quite a lot on it, but we really struggled with things like setting up contracts or just organizing meetings or travel arrangements, a lot of things that kind of were assumed to maybe be done by the management. But I think that kind of institutional capacity building or organizational capacity building would need a proper attention of itself. And then the other point of making the links between the individuals and the organization, I think is maybe, it's not a challenge that we have to aim to overcome on a short term, But it's good to try to build some continuity in this and you know, and to also follow up on the people that go through these programs, how they evolve over time in their career, and at what point they can make a change.
Thank you.
I think Nora really summarizes most of the challenges excellently. The red tape is still an issue. Most of the colleagues we worked with are so enthusiastic and so willing, but there is a lot of creativity needed to sometimes bypass the overall system or to get things done a bit faster. I think that's one of the main challenges. The moment you are in the country, I found it extremely collaborative and not having a lot of obstructions there. Of course, there are some safety issues if you really go to the troublesome areas. But for the rest of the country, it was really easy to work. And it's amazing to see how quick and willing to adjust and adapt and learn the colleagues were there. So that was not really, that was only a very positive thing. Oh, I see quite some questions.
Yes, just another one before we go to the questions from the audience. You just mentioned the positive experience, and do you have also some opportunities you think which were created throughout or which are seen then after these projects?
Opportunities you mean for water management or for capacity building?
Both. So in the project which was then created throughout this project and what you see for future projects as well.
From my experience, for example, we now have, for example, with all this contacts and enthusiasm that we found, the Myanmar stakeholders asked for a nature-based solution course. They had enormous amount of stakeholders who had questions on blue-green urban areas, on eco-engineering, on nature-based solutions, and they came up with a request and wrote a proposal, if it was possible, that we would train their organization in what is it. So they asked us then, and of course that was standard, but they asked the community based on the knowledge they gained to make a new project. And now we have a nature-based solution course, and we will train the local stakeholders, mainly the stakeholders, together with WWF, for example, in nature-based solutions in water management. So, and that was not initiated from the West, that was initiated from Myanmar based on the experiences they had in the last 5 to 10 years.
That's a great example. And Nora, do you have also something to add?
Yeah, we also had some spin-off projects. For example, we had some people from the fisheries department that were involved in our training program, and then the project that this person had been working on became also a spin-off project. But that was then kind of related still to us, but we also have examples that within the organization, actually one of our fellows brought her research, her project work to a proposal that then was really considered within the organization of being funded. So I think that through the setup of proposal writing, that was also a conscious choice that we made. Actually, the fellows did find further opportunities, and also because it was very much conscious of the fact that Myanmar, definitely at the time and still now, is receiving a lot of international attention. A lot of donors are walking around with all sorts of ideas and funds, and so there's a lot of opportunities out there, but the Myanmar water experts have to find the time and also the skills to write proposals in a way in which that the donors want to read that. So I think that was definitely an opportunity that we saw coming out.
Thank you. Very interesting. I'm also working on a capacity building project actually in Bangladesh, so the neighbors. So we might take these tips and include this also in our project. Maybe we just open the questions to the audience, and I've seen the first one is this, or comparing it a bit with Indonesia, and to reflect from their side. But not reading all this question, I would all this text. Yeah, the question is, what about Myanmar in its policy, in its agriculture, and focusing the management of water to irrigate the rice field? Is there a will of the leader in this country to shift to an industrial solutions to manage the water, to build the electricity generator, for example, and to drive industrial machinery? And yeah, that's maybe more to Tom.
I can. I worked a bit in Indonesia, so most importantly, I think you should know that there is most of the country. It's not really water shortage, except in the dry area where there is more irrigation, and in that area there is limited in industry. So I read the question a bit that there is quite some stress, like in Indonesia, can be on the use of land and how to plan it, and then where to use the water for. In Myanmar, it's all a bit larger scale, also compared to the population density. So you really have areas which are completely agriculture focused, which have large irrigation schemes. The more industrial parts are more in the delta. And bluntly said, there is less need there. The food production, the agriculture is a bit less pressing. So it is mainly in the middle parts. And so the south is really for the more industrial areas and some hotspots in the country. And the rest of the country has more than enough space and water for agriculture. Certainly, there is always an issue with hydropower at the moment. There are 99 or 95 hydropower dams planned or in planning phase. That can become a big issue at some point, although they are mainly run-of-the-river types, but still having hydropower dams and having irrigation is a bit of a, then the stakeholders have to discuss and negotiate a bit more. Currently, I know it only from a few locations. Maybe Nora has some hands-on experience, but so it's not as pressing as in Indonesia, that problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe to add on that, so currently in Myanmar, there is a big strategic plan being made, about the Integrated River Basin Management Plan, within which there is a lot of attention to hydropower development indeed, and 100% electrification of Myanmar is one of the key objectives. Now, this is a very contentious issue because there's a lot of social and environmental issues also related to that. But the way in which right now in the plan, at least, it is figuring is that both hydropower and irrigation development are being given almost equal attention. So it's not indeed in a lot of cases that there would have to be a choice made between the two, because the hydropower is mainly happening in the higher mountainous area, and the irrigation expansion of the projects to increase the rice production is happening mainly in the dry zone and in the delta area. So that conflict is not happening at that level. It's more, yeah, around the flows of the river, deforestation issues, social issues, etc.
All right. Maybe next one. How is your research addressing data validity? Oh, sorry, validity and integrity of the How? Yeah. Can you see this question? Yeah.
I'm not sure which question.
So how is your research address data validity and integrity of the data?
Okay. So I think this relates, but otherwise please help me. I think this relates to the issue of citizen science and data collection. First and foremost, Remco Arlenhoed, my colleague, also asked this question now. In the way we address it in capacity building, I see these citizen science projects as a fabulous way of raising awareness, training people, and stepping up towards a more automated way of data collection. So in that respect, integrity of the data and the direct use of the data in most of the project is less important, because we do not promise, for example, data quality which can be used on a continuous basis for assessing, for example, the water quality of the urban lake in the city of the people from Myanmar and the Yangon City Developing Council, YCDC, are, I think, capable of going after their own regulations and maintaining those. Yeah, so I would be careful in bringing that up to them. However, we do bring in a lot of knowledge about sensors, about the quality of the data, about how you could collect the data and how you could store the data. But that then becomes the responsibility of the local stakeholder. Now, particularly for this Ayawadi monitoring system, that has been done with a PhD student called Tanda Tatu. She works at the largest, the Directorate of Inland Water Transport. And she is working there and doing a research there. So she also directly brings the data into the right organization. So in this way, it's not us as the trainers, but more the local stakeholders who will take on the issue of how to use the data afterwards. It's a big issue, by the way, in Myanmar, how to centralize data storage and make it accessible to everybody. That is a project which is part of the integrated river basin assessment, which is now done, what Nora already mentioned. And that will be a 10-year project to get that really done. There are first initiatives, but it's not fluent yet. I mean, they have set up an organization where all the data should be stored. But I think most of the countries in the world do not even have a centralized data storage. So we should not put our hope too high.
Thank you. I have another one. This is very related, of course, to COVID-19, which is a prominent topic everywhere. So people asked, how is your work going now throughout the pandemic? Is it like paused, or how can you further do the work in such situation? Or what do you see as a vision on future capacity building in Myanmar? Yeah, and how is it affected by COVID-19?
We are continuing with the running projects through these kind of setups, so webinars, Zoom meetings. We actually had a stakeholder workshop in September in which we were discussing these different scenarios in the Ayawadi Integrated River Basin Management Plan, and where people were voting, showing their preferences, etc. So that was still working rather fine. And I think, I mean, we're all learning how to connect better online. I'm not quite sure toward the future how this will evolve, because what we did notice, or kind of what we all agreed with the training staff and the coaches involved in our capacity building projects, is the importance of being physically present and of going together to the field and of, you know, responding to things that you see, that you hear. So that aspect will be lost, and I don't think we have a replacement for that. But it's not that we have to stop everything. We can continue, and we have all sorts of ways of collaborating online. but it will not be the 100%, at least in my opinion. No.
So I agree fully. With everything you build up and all the connections you have online is possible. We now have set up, for example, the first nature-based solution course we will do online, but with our local experts. So we have some experts who did their MSc at TU Delft, for example, or now the PhD, who have had the PhD degree, for example, in Myanmar, with whom we collaborate quite extensively. And those sometimes have their own company, sometimes they'll work at the university, and we involve those to then be our link on the ground in Myanmar. But I am doubtful if we can do this for another 2-3 years. I mean, we can do it building on the relations you have at the moment, but at some point, the energy and the didactical quality of being together and having, for example, students sharing their experience and not learning, not like teaching the people from Myanmar, no, learning. I mean, the experience of Dutch students going to Myanmar and working there, they are now lacking as well. So they really miss this, and they really miss the opportunity of learning how to do research in another environment. So I really hope this will end at some point and we can go back to exchanging physically.
I hope so too, but thank you. There is a question to get more background information on some information about the situation with respect to the safe drinking water supply in Myanmar, and what is the extent of collective supply systems in Myanmar and the prevalence of waterborne diseases or outbreaks?
Oh, that's a lot. Now, I can tell you we have just submitted a groundwater scoping study, and there will be a €1 million or more even project funded by the World Bank on particularly this issue. And not going in all the details, the water is in many locations still quite safe, and in other locations horrible. Which there are areas with clear arsenic problems, for example, the famous problems in the PT areas. There is clearly some salty water and water problems in the urbanized areas. There you see people going to buying bottled water. So it's a whole palette in the whole country. But overall, it is an issue which it's not good enough, and especially the distributed water is now, we call it household water. It's not something you should drink completely directly. So for that, the water quality is not good enough at this moment. But it's an excellent question, and it will be addressed in the next, I think, 3 years, 4 years. It will be a focus program for the Myanmar government.
And maybe I can add to that this is also very much a governance issue, where the Myanmar water law, I'm not fully aware what is the status in this very moment, but there was quite some discussion on that law, and one of the reasons was that whether they would write in the World Health Organization standards for water quality of drinking water, because of the enormous implications, of course, this then would have for the governmental responsibility on the water quality coming out of the piped water. And so I think the issue is very important. There's a lot of quality issues indeed, and yeah, that it will take indeed some years and quite some funding to manage that. And what I understood is that only when there is this view on how to tackle this problem will also the legislation follow.
Yeah, and I think there is a question which can build on that. What mechanism have you put in place to ensure that your research outputs and technologies are assimilated or integrated by the institutions responsible for water management?
Very good question. How do we do that in the Netherlands? Even there, we are not quite sure how to do this in a very correct way. Yeah, let's be very honest. This is a wow. Our most so for capacity building, of course, we do it by training the university staff and the young university staff who has a position there. For the research outcomes, we mainly do it by always including a stakeholder. Now, I have to be honest that stakeholders tend to change jobs frequently, so that can be an issue, but we mainly do it person by person, so having your collaborator, for example, in the Ministry for the large water structure and the water transport, DWIR. There we collaborate already for quite some time with the same persons. The same holds for the irrigation department. So in this way, by having these collaborations, we hope that the knowledge stays in those ministries. But I must say that the regular job changing is a challenge here, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with Tom. We also work with involving the stakeholders when defining the research also. So actually very important is one of the things to do is to, in the definition of the research projects that we would have, is to not ourselves come up with those topics, but let them come out of the organization so that at least this was really to their interest or this was something they would have to do anyway. But then, so we really also saw that problem to let this new learning or these new techniques or outputs flow into the organizations, even though we had also set up kind of a, not a buddy, but a supervisor, a connection that would go, that had signed off a letter like we support this research or this project, this training, and we will make sure that the output will be taken up further. But this is this is a bit complicated, and as Tom says, these are relationships that are being built up and that sometimes are interrupted. But those would be the few ways that we do have and that we do use to facilitate this uptake.
Thank you. And there's another one. How do you deal with multiculturality within those projects? But I think you addressed this already. Do you want to comment on that?
Interculturality, you mean? I mean, that's the interesting, and that's the have a meal together. That's really, I mean, the food is fabulous. No, just working together is, I think, probably the most important. And listening, making sure you address the research questions or the challenges your partners have is I think most important in this. Furthermore, I personally do not try to, and I think for all of our projects, we do not aim for directly influencing the policy or the workflow of the local government. I mean, we train, we give capacity, we help understanding, training, give all kind of tools, but in the long run, it's not me telling what to do. So, and I think that is my personal approach in these projects. Of course, sometimes you can be a bit pushy, like I think this will work better, but in the long run, it's a decision of your partner in Myanmar how to use it or not.
Yeah, I think maybe I want to comment on two things. One is the cultural differences maybe in the way in which we cooperate or discuss or converse. And I think this was something that had to grow. So depending on where you are in the world, maybe groups of people are more used to just take the floor and start and oppose something that is being said. In Myanmar, this is really not at all the culture. So as compared to the Dutch culture, which is very direct and very outspoken, this was something that needed to grow, but it happened. And indeed, through having meals together, through laughing, through, you know, and ensuring that this was totally fine, I think these things are established. The other aspect of multiculturality within the country, there is a lot of different ethnicities. And we had made it an objective up front to have representatives of the different ethnicities in our training program, and that proved to be quite a challenge, actually. And one way that we also try to compensate for that is to travel with the group of fellows through different parts in the basins and tackle issues that maybe are more prominent for a certain ethnicity than another one, and to discuss that, to have a bit of a, yeah, to get more of a common understanding of that.
Thank you. And I think the final question from the audience who are listening via Zoom is questions for those who are interested in your projects. How do you recommend ways in which they can get involved?
I think it's quite simple. Just first of all, the information is freely available. Everything we do is open access, both in our websites and in papers and in reports. And the second is just email. I would not know an easier. I think I'm relatively easy, reachable and approachable. So yeah, there it is. Thank you, Rajit. Just send an email. And don't be angry if I do not reply within a day, but I tend to reply.
Thank you.
Same for me, just send an email if you want to have more information.
Great. And to Ravid, are there any other questions from Facebook?
Yeah, thank you, Christina, and thanks for our panelists. And thanks for everyone who is following on Facebook as well. I would like to forward this question, and maybe if it was not targeted in the opportunities, but what are your next steps? And that's for Tom and Nora, in terms of new projects or ongoing projects in the water cooperation.
I can tell you that we are now involved in, or we have just given the Dutch government a groundwater scoping project, for example, in which we made an assessment on the current state of groundwater and the most important issues. We have 2 trainings lined up, one more on river management and one on nature-based solutions in water resources management, and on we still have the capacity building projects going on. A hell of a lot of good collaborators in Myanmar to do this with. So, but I also try to continue the projects that we have started, but we do not have all the funding. So I hope the funders are not listening too well, but I always try to you know, find a little bit of money to continue things that you have started, to hopefully make it in a 10-year or 15-year kind of collaboration, and still with some creativity that's possible. So for us, we hope this long-term involvement, but we have to be honest, without funding, no projects. I mean, at some point we have to find the funding.
Yeah, for us, we also we still have the one big project running in capacity building, and then some more advisory projects. There's a few new coming up. One topic we want to dive in is the integrated coastal zone management, and also to look more at the institutional aspects of that. We are also discussing with the embassy and yeah, some Dutch donors on the water quality programming, and again, what is the institutional connotation of that? So we're going to have a small project on that. And then more kind of longer term, we have a couple of students, new students from Myanmar coming. I'm sure that at TU Delft this is happening as well. And we're making these scholarships more known and trying to attract more students. And then specifically on the cooperation, we are still writing and discussing a proposal on water diplomacy and conflict management in the country related to this issue of dams. So this is something that is in our desired development, but yeah, depending on whether there are suitable calls for that.
I wish you good luck for that. And there was a last question from the audience. What should a student have as background knowledge for integrated water research management, or to start learning about this very important subject?
I was already starting to type a bit of an answer to this one. Okay, honestly, I don't think the background for integrated water resource management is that sensitive. I mean, a basic knowledge in environmental engineering, water-related, aquatic ecology-related topics, and then just enthusiasm to work in this field. That's the technical part. You also can go a bit more from the governance part, and I think Nora can answer that probably better than I can. So I give that one to Nora from that side.
Yeah, for us, I mean, we have students with all sorts of background that are working on this management and governance issues, and it is necessary. So lawyers, economists, journalists. So it's not needed to have a background in water, but you need to have indeed interest and enthusiasm, because at some point and at the start of this study, you will need to understand the water system. Yeah, so basic hydrological knowledge. But it's not something that you need to have before starting, because generally in these trainings, we will bring everybody up to the basic speed, and then it's a task of everyone to bring in their disciplinary knowledge, and this is very much needed and wanted.
Yeah, and to add on that, those who think that you should start a bachelor like integrated water resource management and have all the knowledges from all the needed disciplines, is not what I see most. Most you will see your own expert field with the willingness to broaden yourself, the so-called T-shape, if I'm correct. But that would, I think, that and the willingness to collaborate brings you quickly into integrated water resource management. Personal opinion in this. So bring in your expertise and then start listening and collaborating, and follow some additional courses in the topics you are not mastering.
Sounds good. And I've overseen one question. There was another technical one, the last one to Tom. Does wet weather conditions fluctuate the findings in observation?
Yeah, so I'm not, I saw that question. I have to guess a little bit in if for which topic that was. Typically we would like to see if the weather changes, that some of our variables change. That's the first thing. Yes, some remote sensing information is weather dependent. So sometimes you will have less visibility or less good quality, not for all the sensors we have. Of course, with water quality, yeah, it's what you have. So it doesn't matter if it's wet season or dry season, you can still measure it. So yeah, more water means typically a dilution. Typically a slightly lower degree of pollutions and contaminants as more freshwater runoff. So not really. I mean, typically we can handle the weather conditions for our measurements.
Great. Thank you very much. We could answer all the questions, which is great. Thanks for your time and giving the insights to this project. It was very interesting to follow and to learn more about the capacity building in Myanmar. And we would like to round up the session now and give you a small outlook to the next one. So there will be another one, same time next Wednesday, where researchers from UNU-INRA and University of Ghana will talk about their research and cooperation, international cooperation in water management. Thank you very much again, and I wish you all a good day and all the best for your projects. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.